Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something fascinating. World Liberty Financial, or WLFI.
Mm-mm.
And this isn't just, another name in the crypto space. It's a pretty bold venture sitting right at that crossroads of traditional finance and blockchain. Plus, there's this unprecedented political angle, the direct involvement of former President Donald Trump and his family.
That's right. Yeah, it launched in 2024. WLFI said, well, they're pitching themselves as a one-stop shop for DeFi across the globe.
Hmm.
And DeFi, of course, decentralized finance, building financial tools right on the blockchain, trying to cut out the middlemen, the traditional banks, their big mission, trying to bridge that gap between old school banking and blockchain, aiming for mass adoption. It's really a standout example of this emerging trend, politify crypto.
Solidify. Yeah, that's a really interesting term. It's more than just a label, right? It seems to signal this new, and let's be honest, pretty controversial mix where political brands and maybe loyalty get directly tied into financial products. Kind of blurs lines we used to think were pretty clear. So, for you listening, our goal today is to cut through the noise, the hype, all the surprising bits, and get to the real core of WLFI. We've got a lot to cover, the team behind it, some interesting backstories there, the token itself, how it works, the really fast roadmap. I'm particularly interested in how a project like this, tied so closely to a major political figure, handles all the scrutiny, regulations, community reactions. What stands out to you as we start peeling this back?
Well, the first thing I think is just how unique the mix of people is. Really unique. You've got the Trumps, obviously Donald Trump is chief crypto advocate, Eric and Don Jr. as Web3 ambassadors, even Barron Trump listed as DeFi visionary. But beyond them, the core team includes co-founders Zak Folkman, and Chase Herro. Now, these are the guys who previously built Doe Finance. And that project, you might remember, it suffered a $2 million exploit back in July 2023.
Right, the Doe finance hack. And that's not just a small detail, is it? It kind of highlights a key tension in this whole politify space. You can have all the political branding in the world attracting money and eyeballs, but does that guarantee solid tech, proven security? That's a big concern in DeFi. It makes you wonder if political influence can, paper over some of those fundamental development questions. And speaking of unconventional, Folkman was apparently a dating coach. And her has been open about past legal issues. A dating coach and someone with a record co-founding a major financial project definitely breaks the mold of like traditional finance. Maybe it's that unconventional approach. You've also got Steven Witkoff, the real estate developer, longtime Trump associate, involved. His sons, Zach and Alex, too, in key roles. And legal advice is coming from Gabriel Shapiro's firm, MetalX. They get about 1.3% of the tokens. Ryan Fang from Anchor is an advisor, too, focused on user onboarding and tech strategy.
Exactly. It's this blend of political connections, traditional finance folks, and actual crypto veterans.
No.
Gives it a certain publicity engine, but also some industry know-how. WLFI itself is focusing on US dollar stablecoins and permissionless lending. The goal they state is to unlock financial access for all.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the Trump endorsement undeniably gave them huge visibility, pulling in maybe a broader audience than just the usual crypto crowd.
But doesn't that direct political link kind of clash with the whole idea of decentralization, the core principle of DeFi? How do you square being a one-stop shop for DeFi with having such a concentrated, politically charged figurehead?
Yeah, that's the dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a huge marketing advantage on one hand, but it absolutely invites questions about conflicts of interest, centralization. Despite all that, though, they managed to pull in over 85,000 investors and raise, what, over $500 million? That's pretty remarkable in today's market, politics aside.
Okay, so we've looked at the team, this very interesting team. Let's dig into the token itself now, the WLFI token. What are the basics? How does it fit into their big picture? The total supply I see is fixed at 100 billion tokens. Any change needs governance approval. And interestingly, it started out non-transferable, just used for voting inside the platform.
Right. And the distribution, well, it definitely favors the founders and early backers, but the public investors do have a decent chunk. Around 30% of the supply was earmarked for public sale. They sold about 25 billion tokens across 2 sales, raising roughly $550 million. That first sale, October 2024, apparently hit its $300 million cap in just 24 hours. Crazy fast. The other 75%. That stayed with insiders partners. Donald Trump's family, through DT Marks DeFi LLC, initially had about 75% control equity or tokens. They've apparently brought that down to around 55% as of mid-2025. Trump himself holds over 15 billion WLFI tokens, and he reported $57.4 million in income from token sales in 2025.
55%, even reduced? That's still incredibly centralized for a project claiming to be DeFi aiming for mass adoption. How does that fit with the usual decentralized ethos we hear about?
It doesn't, really. That's a major point of criticism. Other big chunks include a 7% grant for the Aave protocol, 1.3% for the lawyers, MetalX. Justin Sun, the Tron founder, he's a big outside investor too, put in at least $75 million. So yeah, the holder base is very concentrated. The Trump family and a handful of others control well over half the supply. To stop an immediate sell-off, they put in pretty strict lockup periods. Public sale buyers, locked for at least 12 months. Team and advisor tokens are locked too, and the current vote to make tokens tradable specifically excludes them from the first unlock wave. It's a staggered approach, trying to avoid a huge dump right at the start. Also worth noting, the WLFI smart contract can be upgraded. Gives the team technical wiggle room, though changes supposedly need governance approval later. And instead of typical staking rewards, WLFI plans to generate yield by deploying its capital using established DeFi protocols, like Alive, not just printing more tokens.
But holders did get something else that one-time airdrop, right? $47 in their USD-Ones stablecoin for each token holder. A clear nod to Trump being the 47th president. That's quite a memorable marketing touch, isn't it? Very political branding. A clever way to fire up the base, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely got attention. It was approved by a governance vote, the idea being to boost USD-1 adoption and reward those early supporters. So yeah, the tokenomics show massive fundraising, a big community base, but definitely concentrated ownership, and its main job right now has been governance.
Okay, so governance is key. Let's talk utility. What does holding WLFI actually let you do?
Fundamentally, it's about shaping the protocol's future. That's the core idea. Each WLFI token gives you voting power on proposals, things like tech upgrades, new products, how the treasury money gets used, partnerships, all that stuff.
So holders are basically the board of directors for this decentralized thing. The governance portal I saw has a three-step process. Propose, review, vote. They use Snapshot for the voting, which is off-chain. And people have already voted on some pretty big things, like making the token tradable that passed with like 99% support, right? And distributing those stablecoin rewards.
Exactly. And beyond just voting, WLFI is meant to have real utility inside their upcoming products, like the WLFI app. Details are still coming out, but you could imagine WLFI tokens maybe giving access to premium features or better rates on their DeFi services, maybe fee discounts. WLFI will also govern the rules for the USD-1 stablecoin and its lending pools. And if the whole thing starts making money, WLFI holders could even vote on what to do with those earnings.
And while it doesn't automatically pay out dividends like a stock, holders could, through governance, decide to do things like token burns to potentially increase value, or other mechanisms. So far, its utility has mostly been about signaling support, community building, and that governance piece. But making it transferable, tradable, that adds a whole new layer, doesn't it? It becomes a real asset with potential price discovery and liquidity.
That's a huge shift, yeah. A tradable WLFI becomes something people can speculate on or hold as a long-term investment. It could also be used as an incentive rewarding people who contribute to the ecosystem or doing token swaps to bring other projects into their fold. There's also an interesting bit in their FAQ. If any single wallet gets over 5% of the total supply, some special rules might apply. Now, the Trump family's holdings are way over 5%, but the team apparently voluntarily sat out some votes, like the one on making WLFI tradable, to let the community decide. So it shows they're at least aware of the perception of fairness, even with that centralization.
Let's talk about the timeline, because World Liberty Financial has moved incredibly fast, almost breakneck speed. Soft launch was September 2024. Then Trump himself tweeted, October 12th, 2024, rallying support for the token sale. He framed it as your chance to help shape the future of finance.
Yeah, and that pre-sale on October 15th, 2024, it was global, but U.S. folks had to be accredited investors to comply with regulations. They offered 20% of the supply, valued the whole thing at $1.5 billion, and like we said, reportedly hit the $300 million cap in 24 hours. The timing, just before the U.S. presidential election, probably didn't hurt. Maybe capitalized on, peak Trump brand visibility.
Right. And after raising that initial money, they moved fast on the DeFi side. They integrated with Aave v3 for lending and borrowing, submitted a proposal to Aave's governance. Aave DAO got 7% of WLFI tokens for that partnership. Then they announced a collab with Athena Labs in December 2024, looking to use Athena's SUSD synthetic dollar.
The momentum kept going. Early 2025, they had a second public token sale. That brought the total raise to that $550 million figure by mid-2025. Then, March 2025, they officially launched the USD-1 stablecoin, Ethereum and BNB chain first, fully backed by cash and short-term U.S. treasuries, reserves held by BitGo. The big exchanges jumped on it pretty quick. Binance, Bitkit, Gate.io, Huobi, all listed USD-1 by April 2025.
And then came the really big one, the milestone everyone talked about. May 2025, USD-1 gets chosen to handle a $2 billion investment into Binance from Abu Dhabi's fund, MGX. That just shot USD-1 supply up to around $2.1 billion almost instantly, made it one of the fastest growing stablecoins ever. But it also kicked up a huge political storm. Senator Elizabeth Warren calling it out as potential corruption, foreign government fund using Trump's stablecoin to invest.
Yeah, huge controversy. But from WLFI's side, it was massive validation, right? Show their stablecoin could handle serious volume. Around the same time, USD-1 got integrated onto the Tron network. Early June, they did that symbolic 47 USD-1 airdrop we mentioned after the community vote. Also in June, they started closed beta testing for the WLFI app, their main interface for the wallet, bridging, swapping, and eventually lending.
And just now, July 2025, the community votes overwhelmingly over 99% yes to make the WLFI token itself tradable on public markets. That feels like a really pivotal moment, shifting from this closed internal system to an open DeFi token, a huge step. Once that happens, WLFI becomes transferable, initially only for the public sale investors, while the team and insiders stay locked up.
So as of right now, July 2025, WLFI is basically right on the edge of hitting the open market. The WLFI app is expected to launch publicly around the same time, handling bridging and governance. The lending borrowing platform, which is essentially a FII v3 with a WLFI skin that's likely the next big product launch. USD-1 stablecoin is up and running, market supply around $2.2 billion, making it a top stablecoin already. And they're bringing in TRM Labs for compliance analytics.
See, looking further out, late 2025 and beyond, what's on the roadmap? Full market launch of the WLFI token, probably listings on more exchanges, especially outside the US. The DeFi platform goes fully live, letting people deposit collateral, borrow against it. Maybe USD-1 expands to other chains, Solana, Polygon. They've already partnered with Alchemy Pay for fiat on-ramps, and of course, navigating whatever happens with regulations, like potential US stablecoin laws.
Yeah, and longer term, the ambition seems broader. More consumer adoption, maybe more comprehensive financial services, trying to attract mainstream users with easy wallets, payment features, maybe even lending products for regular folks or businesses. It's definitely a roadmap that shows a project trying to move very quickly from just raising funds to being fully operational.
Okay, so with all that background, the big question for a lot of people listening is probably, what happens when WLFI actually starts trading? As of now, July 2025, it's not on any public exchange because of those transfer locks. But with that community vote passing, where do we expect to see it first?
Probably decentralized exchanges, right? Uniswap, PancakeSwap, maybe a WLFI USD-1 pair.
That seems most likely, yeah. Decentralized exchanges first. The team hasn't confirmed any centralized exchange listings, but you can bet smaller international exchanges are probably getting ready. The big ones, Binance, Coinbase, they'll likely be more cautious. Though Coinbase does already have an info page up for WLFI, which is interesting. So yeah, initial trading probably on-chain, maybe some mid-tier offshore exchanges. And liquidity. That's always key at launch. It'll depend on how they handle the unlock, right? Only a fraction of tokens hitting the market initially could mean high volatility. Will the WLFI team provide liquidity themselves? Will market makers jump in? And this KYC requirement, new users buying WLFI have to do KYC on WLFI site. That's pretty unusual for a DeFi token, isn't it? Something to watch.
Definitely unusual, yeah. Adds a hurdle. But while WLFI token isn't trading yet, the USD-1 stablecoin has been active since April-May 2025, and its rapid growth gives us a clue about WLFI's potential reach. Binance listing USD-1 in mid-May was huge. On PancakeSwap, USD-1 apparently saw daily volumes around $14 million. The team even encouraged meme coin projects to use USD-1 pairs, boosting its use with retail traders.
Although that Kaiko analysis pointed out USD-1 adoption, while fast, is pretty centralized itself. 3 wallets holding most of the supply. Likely includes that big $2 billion MGX Abu Dhabi wallet. That hasn't stopped USD-1 from working. The peg seems stable around $1. But the so what's for WLFI token investors? Having a successful liquid USD-1 already out there provides ready-made infrastructure for WLFI trading pairs. That's a big advantage.
Absolutely. And the success of USD-1 kind of signals that the market, at least part of it, trusts the project to manage a large-scale financial operation. When WLFI tokens do get listed on bigger exchanges, the fact those exchanges already handle USD-1 could make adding a WLFI USD-1 pair much simpler, smooths the path.
Okay, price. Since it hasn't traded, there's no real chart history. The valuation was set during the sales roughly 0.015 to 0.022 lens per token. That implies a fully diluted valuation, FDV, of $1.5 to $2.2 billion. Once it's live, though, the market could decide something very different. If there's a lot of hype, maybe it opens higher. Or maybe early investors look to cash out.
Right. If it trades around that sale valuation, say a $2 billion FDV, That puts it in the top 50 or 60 crypto projects by market cap, pretty high.
Hmm.
If it somehow jumped to, say, $0.10 per token, that's a $10 billion FTV near the top 20, that would need some serious justification very quickly. High volatility at the start seems almost guaranteed.
And the holders. We mentioned about 85,000 public buyers,
Right.
plus the team, plus big investors, Donald Trump with over 15 billion tokens, the Trump family overall holding, what, 40, 55% after the sales, Justin's son with maybe a few billion, Avav DAO set to get around 7 billion. That is definitely a very concentrated ownership structure.
Yeah, the main whales are clearly the Trump family, LLC, Justin's son, maybe Alav's allocation once they get it. Now, the Trump family did publicly reduce their stake, and they talk about commitment to decentralization. Politically and for community relations, any sign of them just dumping tokens would be disastrous. So they have an incentive to hold or sell carefully. And that phased unlock is designed specifically to try and manage that potential whale impact early on.
But with 85,000 holders, community feeling will play a big role too. If a lot of them are true believers, long-term holders, that could keep supply tight. But you also hear skepticism, right? People worrying that early insiders or foreign investors might dump on regular American buyers left holding the bag.
Oh, absolutely. The community is incredibly passionate, but also very polarized. It's intense. Early on, they built a huge following using the Trump brand. Tens of thousands of grassroots supporters. For many of them, WLFI feels like part of the former president's movement, challenging the establishment. So among that core group, sentiment is often really optimistic, almost zealous.
Is that loyalty just political, though? Or is there something technical attracting people? Because on the flip side, you have a lot of crypto people who are deeply skeptical, calling it a potential cash grab, worrying about the centralization. You see comments like, translation, team is trying to dump, or fears about insiders selling off. That cynicism is definitely out there.
Well, the Trump connection just guarantees partisan reactions, doesn't it? Supporters see patriotic innovation. Detractors see a grift or a massive conflict of interest. You see it all over forums. Interestingly, though, inside WLFI's official channels, the discussion seems pretty constructive most of the time. And that 99% yes vote on making the token tradable shows the community can agree strongly on practical steps.
Crypto media has covered it a lot, often neutrally, but highlighting the controversies, the Doe Finance hack, the founder's past, gives a bit of a sensational vibe. But then Reuters covering the $2 billion Binance deal that cast it in a more serious institutional light helps legitimacy with a wider audience, maybe.
And politicians weighing in definitely shapes the narrative. Senator Warren calling it corrupt draws clear battle lines. That proposed Koyan Act, restricting officials like the president from promoting crypto, that became a huge discussion point too. Is it targeted harassment? Or necessary rules? That whole political debate filters down into the community talk and affects how people feel.
Yet, despite all that noise, the overall vibe in WLFI's own spaces seems pretty bullish, optimistic. The project keeps framing itself as inclusive, empowering, and the fact that they have delivered on some key things, launching USD-1 with backing, holding governance votes that must build some credibility with their base.
Yeah, execution matters. Now, regulation. That's got to be one of the biggest hurdles, right? Especially with the U.S. ties and the president's involvement. It's unprecedented. From the start, they seem to have tried to be careful. That initial token sale, restricting U.S. buyers to accredited investors doing KYC/ML checks, that was likely to avoid being seen as an unregistered securities offering in the U.S.
So the big question lingers. Could WLFI itself eventually be classified as a security by regulators? They call it a governance token with utility, not an investment contract. But regulators might look at the huge fundraising and the expectation of profit. Although with the Trump administration potentially back in charge from 2025, maybe the SEC leadership becomes more crypto-friendly. That could lessen the immediate risk, perhaps. It's a big if.
And for the USD-1 stablecoin, transparency is crucial. They're emphasizing monthly audited reserve reports, using BitGo as the custodian for the collateral. That mirrors what regulated stablecoins like USDC do. It's vital for trust and compliance. And integrating TRM labs for blockchain monitoring that helps them track transactions, look for illicit activity, standard compliance stuff.
But the really unique regulatory headache, the elephant in the room, is that conflict of interest involving a sitting president. Congressman Schiff's Coin Act directly targets this, banning the president and family from issuing or promoting crypto while in office. The Trump family reducing their stake by 20%. That feels like a direct response to those kinds of concerns. And Senator Warren's criticism really underscores the intense scrutiny they're under. It sets a precedent.
Right. And while WLFI's governance acts kind of like a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, They haven't formally called it that. It's still an incorporated entity. That hybrid model might offer some accountability, which regulators might prefer. Long term, actually decentralizing WLFI more could strengthen it, maybe take some of that political heat off. They're clearly trying to stay compliant, but operating in this massive regulatory gray area because of the unique politics, that's a key ongoing challenge.
Okay, so pulling it all together. From an investment perspective, looking long term,
Mhm.
how does WLFI stack up? It's definitely complex. Strengths and weaknesses are pretty clear. Strength one, massive backing and capital. Trump name recognition, $550 million raised. That's a huge war chest for building and marketing.
Strength two, that integrated model. Having their own stablecoin, USD-1, plus the upcoming DeFi platform, lets them capture value at different levels. And USD-1 already being a top stablecoin with $2.2 billion supply. That's a massive head start most new projects just don't have.
Third, the political tailwinds. Assuming a crypto-friendly U.S. administration, that could mean easier regulations, maybe letting WLFI get established before serious rules clamp down, a potential head start.
Fourth, the community potential is large, active, often tied to a political base. That can mean incredible loyalty and people spreading the word.
Yeah.
If even a decent fraction of that base actually uses WLFI's financial services, the network effect could be enormous.
And fifth, those strategic partnerships. Aviv, Tron, major exchanges. Lays groundwork for more collaborations, maybe even with TradFi or governments down the line. Shows big ambition.
So the bull case, WLFI launches its lending platform successfully, USD-1 keeps growing, maybe gets $5 or $10 billion market cap, WLFI becomes a major DeFi player, the WLFI token itself could become really valuable, maybe like Maker DAO's MKR in terms of governance power, long term. Maybe they envision a whole alternative financial ecosystem with WLFI at the core.
But then the challenges, huge ones. Centralization is obvious. Insiders hold so much power. Technical risks that don't finance hack history raises questions about security. Competition in the DeFi space is incredibly crowded and innovative. And the reputational and political risks. Any Trump controversy could easily splash onto WLFI.
Definitely. And the regulatory and legal risks are still there. Could USD-1 face issues? Could WLFI token be deemed a security later on, especially under a different administration? Plus, just general market risks. Volatility from whale selling, needing smart treasury management, all the usual financial risks apply too.
So, after this really deep dive, what's the final take on WLFI at this specific moment? It feels like a project right at a crossroads. We've looked at this totally unique venture, poised to go from being this closed fundraising thing to a fully tradable asset out in the wild.
Yeah, we've seen how it's used as unprecedented mix political influence, serious capital, key partnerships like Alav and Binance to launch USD-1 incredibly quickly to $2.2 billion. We've dug into the governance, token mechanics, soon to be tradable, the colorful mix of founders, and we've touched on the polarized community feelings and that really complex regulatory tightrope they're walking, especially with those political conflicts.
The whole journey, from idea to fundraising to this current vote on open trading, it shows huge ambition, but also massive challenges. The strengths are real, the money, the established stablecoin, gives it a fighting chance. But the risks, centralization, tech vulnerabilities, constant political heat, they're just as real.
Which leaves a big question really for you, the listener. In this world where digital finance is growing and the lines between tech and politics are getting fuzzier, could a project like WLFI, born right at that intersection of power and decentralization, could it actually end up redefining how we think about money? Or even change our ideas about trust and financial power in this digital age? It's a question that goes way beyond just market predictions, doesn't it? Makes you think about how these forces might reshape our financial future.